Our yellow bus pulled into a sketchy gas station in the middle of nowhere, and the entire cheer squad poured out like we'd been caged for a week. My friend Kayla sniffed herself. I can't believe we have to travel in our cheer uniforms. I bet football players don't have to deal with this. I was scanning for road signs when I noticed an old man sitting on a bench outside the front window. He was watching us. His eyes moved from girl to girl like he was taking attendance. Our coach, Ms. Adler, walked right up to him and asked, "Hello there? Do you happen to have directions to the Topekiki Yugni Teamwork Summer Camp?" He slowly looked up at her and spit on the ground. "Go back the way we came and turn right at the yellow scarecrow, not the blue one. You'll see it further down their road." Ms. Adler clasped her hands. "Thank you so much, kind sir." Then he added, "The land up there takes what it's owed." Ms. Adler laughed it off, patted his shoulder, and walked back to the bus smiling. "What an interesting man," she said as she walked by. Kayla whispered in my ear, "Did that man just curse us?" I snorted and headed back to the bus, but when I looked back, his eyes were locked directly onto mine. I looked away first and rushed back onto the bus. The bus wound up the mountain. The road narrowed and the cell towers disappeared. Kayla pulled a switchblade from her jacket and flipped it open against her knee. I looked around to make sure no one saw. "Kayla, you know weapons aren't allowed." She tucked it back. "I'm going to the middle of nowhere with a bunch of people who can't even change a tire. You're welcome." 2 rows behind us, Brianna and Jess were doing a terrible job of whispering. "My boyfriend Tyler is driving up tonight after lights out to meet with me." Jess gasped. "No freaking way!" Hannah, sitting ahead of us, held her freshly painted nails out the window to dry. Dripping neon pink polish hit everything in a 3-foot radius. At the edge of a small town we passed, I noticed a hand-painted welcome sign nailed to a rotting post. A weird symbol was painted on it, a circle with lines radiating inward, like a sun collapsing into itself. I stared until it was behind us. The campgrounds looked like it hadn't been updated since before my grandparents were born. Wooden cabins formed a half circle around a fire pit. An open field had knee-high grass you could get lost in. The only cool thing was the rusted archery range with targets mounted on hay bales that were falling apart. Hannah pressed her face against the bus window. "Please tell me those targets are for us. I've been dying to shoot something all summer." Devin turned to her. "Summer started last week, Hannah." "Whatever. I called dibs on the first shot." 5 counselors stood waiting by the fire pit, all men, all smiling with every tooth showing. The head counselor stepped forward. His skin looked like it had been left in the sun for years. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are going to have the time of your lives." Hannah didn't wait half a second. "Do you even brush your teeth? They're so yellow. Are there bathrooms here? Because I'm not squatting behind a tree for a week." Half the team burst out laughing. The counselor's smile didn't drop, but his eyes narrowed. Then he laughed and gestured for us to follow. The cabins had screen doors, no locks, and mattresses that looked like they'd survived a flood. Another counselor pointed at the tree line. "Woods go on for miles in every direction. Don't wander off alone or something might take a nasty bite out of you." He winked. None of us smiled back. Once inside the cabin, I pulled out my phone. 1 bar, then none, then one again. Kayla checked her phone. No signal, no data, nothing. She tossed her phone on the mattress. "Guess we're roughing it." I fell back onto my bed and eventually fell asleep to the sound of bugs and branches scraping the roof. Suddenly, a hand shook my shoulder, and I opened my eyes to no sunlight. A girl stood over me, flashlight trembling, mascara smeared. "Hannah is missing." We searched the woods for hours. Our flashlights shone into endless trees that swallowed the beams with darkness 20 feet out. The counselors kept steering us whenever we got too far. "Try this way. Stay in pairs." After 3 hours of finding nothing, the head counselor waved us all over to regroup. "We'll pick it back up at first light. Everyone back to your cabins." Ms. Adler squeezed my arm on the way back. "I'm sure she's fine, sweetheart. She probably found a warm spot and fell asleep." I looked at her face and could tell she believed her own words. I laid in my bed for hours, unable to fall asleep. A scream cut through the air before the sun cleared the ridge. I was out of my bunk and running barefoot toward the archery range. My cheer squad members were stopping one by one ahead of me. Each one froze in place. Then I did the exact same thing. Hannah was pinned to the center of the archery target. Her head hung forward and her hair covered her face. Her neon pink nail polish caught the early morning sun. The girl next to me dropped to her knees in the grass. Screaming started and didn't stop. Cheer members grabbed each other. The boys held about 3 crying girls each. Ms. Adler's hand covered her mouth and stayed there. One boy said, "We need to leave. Right now. Let's get on the bus." Suddenly, we were turning, retreating from the corpse of our friend and teammate. My legs were already moving when the counselors stepped forward, blocking our path. The head counselor held up his hands. "Everyone, listen to me. We just got word that cell towers in this area are completely down, and there's been a rock slide on the access road overnight. The only way off this mountain is blocked until an emergency crew can clear it. He paused and scanned our faces. We've already radioed for help. It's on the way. For now, everyone needs to stay calm and stay together. This is the safest place for you. Everyone pulled out their phones at the same time. One girl said, "Why don't I have any bars?" Another cried, "With no way to call home. Call the police. Call anyone. What do we do?" Ms. Adler stepped in front of the group. She put her arm around the nearest crying girl and raised her voice. "The counselors are trained for situations like this. Help is coming. We need to trust the process." She looked at the counselors with complete, unquestioning faith. I looked at the counselors with the complete opposite look. The counselors insisted on splitting us into smaller groups across different cabins. For safety, to keep everyone calm. They grabbed our arms and pointed in different directions. Some of us resisted, holding on to one another like a life preserver. However, they got their way. I ended up in a cabin with Kayla, Devin, and Lisa. The four of us sat on our bunks in silence until Kayla pulled me to the corner. She pressed something into my hand, her switchblade. "Just in case," she whispered. "What about you?" She held up an even bigger switchblade and smirked. "You didn't think I only carried one, did you?" I tucked her gift into the waistband of my cheer skirt and pulled my shirt over it. "Thanks, Kayla." We hugged and were terrified of letting go. The day dragged on. The counselors brought us food, canned soup and bread that tasted like it had been stored underground for months. They smiled and said, "Don't worry, help is on the way." The moment the sun set, a counselor stopped by our cabin to deliver the worst news. "One of your fellow teammates, Amber, wandered off toward the creek. We're looking for her now." He left before we could ask a single question. We stared at one another in horror. The next morning, the counselor came back. "Unfortunately, 2 more from your squad are gone. They snuck out during the night. Happens every year. Scared kids try to walk home. We'll find them. Don't worry." He smiled, showing his yellow teeth. I noticed his shirt had a dark stain near the collar. He noticed me staring and buttoned his jacket over it. The moment he walked out, Devin leaned into me. "Nobody who wanders off comes back? This is super weird." I nodded my head, agreeing. "We need to talk to Ms. Adler." Lisa stepped forward. "But they won't just let us out." I grabbed Kayla's hand. "Can you distract them long enough for me to sneak out?" She smiled and winked. "Leave it to me." 10 minutes later, Kayla was crying hysterically in the arms of the counselor guarding our door, and I was hopping out the window. I found Ms. Adler in the mess hall. She was alone, tearing a piece of bread into smaller and smaller pieces and not eating any of them. I sat down beside her. "Girls are disappearing and nobody is coming back. The counselors are lying. We need to get the rest of the girls and run." She put her hands on my shoulders. "These are trained professionals, sweetheart. I know it's scary, but we have to trust the system." I looked at her, then pulled away and walked out. I had to crouch by the back wall of a cabin, holding my phone at weird angles trying to catch a single bar of signal. Voices carried from the cabin next door caught my attention. 2 counselors were talking, so I inched forward to hear them better. I got blood on my damn jacket again. My eyes widened. From which one? That mouthy bitch from the first night. Glad she went first. She had a mouth on her that wouldn't quit. The land doesn't care about manners. No, but I do. They both laughed. I covered my mouth with my hands and my phone slipped out, landing in the dirt. I pressed my back against the wall and held my breath. After 5 minutes of not breathing, I grabbed my phone and tiptoed away. I climbed back through the window and found Kayla, Devin, and Lisa waiting for me. I told them everything I'd learned. Lisa collapsed onto the ground and pulled her knees to her chest. "How many of us are left?" I counted on my fingers. Maybe 9 or 10, spread across 4 cabins. Devin started pacing. The archery range had tools in the storage box by the targets. I saw a hatchet during the tour. Kayla ran over to her bag and pulled out a notebook, then started sketching a map of the campgrounds. "If we go through the tree line behind the mess hall, it connects to the access road about a mile out." Lisa looked over. "What about the rock slide?" I frowned. "I doubt it's real. If it is, then we climb over it. If it's a lie, we can drive to safety." Lisa started crying. "What if they catch us? How can we get a car? Oh my God, we're all going to die." Kayla looked at me. I touched the switchblade in my waistband. I walked over and put my hand on Lisa's shoulder. "Then we die fighting. We're cheerleaders. No one's going to snuff out our spirit." Lisa took a deep breath and nodded slowly. We waited until 2 a.m. when it was pitch black out. We slipped out the back window, one at a time, and moved low through the grass. Devin tapped on the next cabin's glass. 2 girls appeared at the glass and opened the window for us. Devin expertly gave me a foothold so I could silently tumble through and land inside the cabin. I quickly whispered everything we knew to them, as well as my plan. They joined us without hesitation, sneaking out the same window. Devin split off toward the archery range while we collected the next cabin, who had 3 more. One of them started crying the second we explained. Kayla grabbed her face with both hands. You can cry when we're safe. Right now, you move." The girl nodded and climbed through the window. Devin came back over with the hatchet in one hand and his face drained of color. "Hannah's gone," he whispered. "The target she was on. She's not there anymore. All that's left is a pool of blood." I looked toward the range, but couldn't see much further than our small group in the dark. Lisa covered her mouth. "What did they do with her body?" One of the girls started breathing fast. "Do you think they buried her? Or did they?" Kayla grabbed both their arms. "Stop. We're not doing this right now. We need to move, or we end up on one of those targets too." 9 of us moved in a line through the shadows, behind the mess hall toward the tree line. The woods were 30 feet away. 20, 10. A flashlight snapped on behind us. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" We ran. The tree line swallowed us. Branches tore at my arms and my face and my legs. My hair got caught in a branch, but I kept running. Behind us, flashlights clicked on and voices shouted, "They went into the woods! Get them, idiots!" A counselor crashed through the brush and grabbed Devin by the backpack. He was pulled back and slammed into the ground face first. The hatchet went flying and landed near Lisa, who picked it up and ran at the counselor who was standing over Devin. Lisa swung and the blade caught his forearm. He screamed and stumbled away. Devin scrambled up and grabbed the hatchet with one hand and Lisa's hand in the other. We kept running. However, the thick forest hid our view of one another and the group fractured. Pairs split left, trios split right. I heard screaming behind me, then a squelching sound, then only my breath as I ran and ran. I ran until every direction looked the same. I stopped behind a thick tree and pressed my back against the bark. My lungs burned. I pressed my hand over my mouth to quiet my breathing and listened. I heard footsteps and crouched lower. That's when my knee pressed into something soft. I looked down and wanted to cry. My knee had touched a body. I scrambled backward into another tree. It was a boy who went to my college. I could tell from his school sweatshirt. Then I recognized him as Tyler, Brianna's boyfriend. I stared in horror at the man who snuck in for a romantic rendezvous. I pinched my arm, trying to shock myself out of it. I spotted his phone in his jacket pocket and pulled it out with shaking hands. No signal, but a sliver of battery. I scrolled to his music app, propped the phone against a tree root, cranked the volume to max, and ran fast in the opposite direction. Music echoed through the silent woods. Flashlight beams swung toward the sound like moths. I kept moving until trees thinned and I found a small cabin set back from a dirt path. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. My eyes were still adjusting when something hit the back of my head and the floor came up to meet me. I opened my eyes and saw dirt underneath me. Goosebumps arose on my skin. My hands were bound behind my back with rope and I was laying in a circle where 6 other cheerleaders sat beside me, bound the same way. Kayla was on my left. Her eye was swollen shut and her lip was split. Blood had dried on her chin. Devin was across from me, still unconscious. Lisa sat next to him, willing Devin to wake up with her eyes. There were only 7 of us left. I sat up and looked around. We were in a clearing surrounded by trees so tall they blocked the stars. Torches burned in a wide circle around us, their flames hissing and spitting in the mountain air. At the center of the circle stood a stone altar. It looked older than anything on this mountain. Moss grew up the sides, and the base was stained dark in ways I didn't want to think about. Carved into the face of the stone was a symbol, a circle with lines radiating inward. I thought about the symbol I saw on the town welcome sign when we first drove in. I looked further away from us and saw every person I'd encountered since we arrived. They stood around the torches, the counselors with their 2 wide smiles, the gas station man from the bench who still hadn't blinked, townspeople I'd only glimpsed through the bus window when we drove in. There were 30, maybe 40 of them, all standing around, staring at us like a roach you found in your tub. The gas station man stepped forward. He looked directly at me. The land takes what it's owed. The head counselor walked to the altar and placed both hands on the stone. His too wide smile was gone. Every year, the mountain calls for a large sacrifice, and we answer. A group arrives willingly. We welcome them. We show them a good time. I almost laugh at his definition of a good time. He paused. Each night, one is given to the land, and on the final night, the rest are given together. He looked at us. This is the final night. Their chanting started low, a hum that built from the edges inward. The townspeople swayed. Torchlight flickered across their faces and stretched their shadows into the trees behind them. Kayla's shoulder pressed against mine. Her breathing was fast and shallow, but she still smiled at me. I'm glad we're together. Devin started slowly waking up. The other girls were shaking in terror. I worked my fingers behind my back and found the handle of the blade tucked into my waistband. I smirked, thinking, I guess they thought a teenage girl in a cheer skirt wasn't a threat. The chanting grew louder. Suddenly, an argument broke out near the altar. Two townspeople shoved each other. The head counselor stepped away from the stone to stand between them. A woman screamed at an older man. "I think the man should go first. He's already waking up." The older man pointed at his broken nose. "No way. The bitch who broke my nose goes first. She needs to pay." I flipped the blade open and sawed, strand by strand. My wrists burned. Blood ran down my palms and made the handle slippery. Finally, the rope gave. My hands came free. I kept them behind my back and didn't move. I slowly leaned into Kayla. She opened her hands and the blade passed between us. She cut herself loose in seconds and passed it to Devin, who had finally woken up. Devin to Lisa. Lisa to the next girl. Down the circle, one by one, we passed the knife, while 40 people screamed at each other by the altar. Nobody looked at us. We sat perfectly still with our hands behind our backs. I whispered, "Once I give the signal, get to that truck over there." Lisa looked at me. "What signal?" 3 men were chest to chest by the altar. I bolted forward, grabbed the nearest torch from the ground, and drove it into the base of the altar. The dry cloth caught instantly. Flames climbed the stone and leapt to the wooden frame holding the torches. The fire spread fast and hot, and the chanting collapsed into screaming. Their sacred altar was burning, and years of ritual was turning to ash. The others ran, and I turned to catch up with them. Devin made it to the truck first, searching around for keys. The keys fell from the visor, and Devin shook them in triumph. "Ha ha!" We piled in. Kayla sat on my lap. Lisa hopped in the bed with a few others, gripping the sides. Devin turned the key, and the engine started on the first try. Devin drove the truck down the mountain in the dark, with only the headlights cutting through fog. The road curved and dropped and straightened out. Kayla looked around. I guess the rock slide was a lie. Behind us, through the trees, an orange glow climbed into the sky. The fire was spreading, consuming the campgrounds and soon the surrounding forest. I looked at everyone in the truck. Kayla next to me. Her eye was completely swollen shut now, blood on her chin, gripping the dashboard with white knuckles. Devin kept his eyes on the road, focused, but I saw how 2 of his fingers were bent in the wrong way. Lisa hugged the other girls in the truck bed. Out of an entire cheer squad, only we remained. I looked in the rearview mirror one last time to watch the fire grow.